Another incredibly volatile day on Wall Street today. Dow Jones plunges 900 points to close in the red, negative 26 points. What's even more incredible is that these markets were even up today. It blows my mind to think that the Dow Jones was even up for a minute today. When we look at what's happening in small business, we look at what's happening in this economy, when we look at the millions of people right here in the US who are now unemployed and more coming, the entire US economy literally is frozen, and the Dow Jones closes down only 26 points. That's what I find incredible. I want to talk today about a few things happening in this economy, a few things that came to my attention that I want to share with you. We'll get into some other things. One of them is this. There was an ad on Facebook yesterday, and it's an ad to rent someone's driveway in Oceanside, California, where you can park your fifth wheel. They're charging $1,300 so that you can park your fifth wheel in their driveway or on their driveway in Oceanside, California, with full hookups. This is where it's all going here in America, where people now are going to be renting driveways to park their campers so they can plug into utilities and live. I do see a lot more people in the future living in campers, living in their fifth wheels, renting spaces, renting driveways, wherever that may be. But I found that really fascinating that people now are renting their driveways with full hookups so that people can park a camper there. This is a sign of the times. This is the direction our country is going in. Another interesting thing I saw was an ad this morning. It was actually on YouTube, and it was an auto dealer advertising cars, brand new. You could buy a brand new car, no payments for 4 months, low interest rates and no payment for 4 months. They're doing anything they can now to sell a car, to get that car off the lot. Just again, it's a bellwether of where this is all going. I got a message actually this morning from somebody, and they said this. They said, I've been talking about this disaster, this disastrous economy for months. Maybe I should talk about how to get out of it. And I want to respond to this. And I don't think the person was being vicious or rude or anything like that, but I want to respond to this. I have been talking about this economy, this disastrous economy, but I've been talking about it a lot longer than a few months. I've been talking about it well over a year, probably 2 years, about how disastrous it really was. It's been disastrous literally since 2008, and we could probably even technically go and say it was, it was even a disaster before then. But it's been a disaster since 2008. I've been talking about it, yes, for a couple years. There is no way to get out of this. I can't tell you how to get out of it because there's no way to get out of it. You can't stop it. We're not going to be able to slow it down. That's like saying that we're going to stop a hurricane, and nobody is going to stop a hurricane. All you can do is prepare, just like you would prepare for a hurricane. There's no slowing a hurricane down. There's no stopping it. All you can do is prepare. All you can do is cushion the blow. So I just wanted to respond to that. Look, I've said for over a year, 2 years, make sure you have gold, silver, water, food, security. Make sure you're walking close to God. There's no stopping what's coming. It's already here. It's at the shores right now, and it's going to get much worse. The best case scenario is this, that we get a calm somewhere in the storm, a lull in the storm, allowing people an opportunity to prepare more. And for the people who haven't, I say this sadly, it may be too late. It may be too late to begin to prepare for what has just arrived. You may have a miracle here if we get a calm, if we get a lull in the storm. You may have an opportunity to prepare. But the problem is now, how are people going to prepare when they don't have a job? How are people going to prepare when so many small businesses are going under? How are people going to prepare in a frozen economy now? It's going to get harder. So again, there is no way to get out of this. All you can do is prepare the best that you can, and hopefully you began to prepare for this before it got here. a lot of people have written me and they've asked me, what do I think is going to happen next here in America, especially with the economy. Look, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have a crystal ball. But I don't think that you have to be Einstein or a rocket scientist to figure out what's coming next. A lot of people, and I want to thank everybody for all the comments down below. There's so much knowledge in those comments down below, and I try to read as many as I can. And I know that I have family members and friends that quite literally read every one of your comments. And reading from what I've read allows me to kind of get a bellwether or a barometer of what's happening in the country and what's trending in the country. And from what I see, from what a lot of people are telling me, what's happening in their local real estate areas, commercial, residential, I see a housing and mortgage meltdown. I think the housing bubble isn't just going to pop. I think the housing bubble is going to explode. I think that if you're working in the mortgage industry or the real estate industry as an agent, there's big trouble ahead. And I'm saying that's going to happen everywhere in the United States of America, but nationally, I think most areas are going to get hit very, very hard. I mean, look at articles in the Wall Street Journal. Look at articles on CNBC. They're expecting people to default on their mortgages. 30% of the mortgages here in America, they expect will be defaulted. That's huge. 30% of mortgages could default right here in America. That number could go as high as 40, but let's just say it's half of that. Let's be extremely conservative here and say it's half of that. It's 15%. That's enormous. That means big trouble is coming to the mortgage industry. Just with what we're seeing now with the stimulus package and the CARE Act and all that, allowing people to go 4 months without paying their mortgages. How are these mortgage companies going to survive this? They're going to want a massive bailout. If they don't get it, they're in huge trouble. And the more industries and the more people and the more small business and big business we bail out, the more debt we are creating. We are cutting our own throats here, ladies and gentlemen. People just think that we're going to print money and that never has to be paid back. We're going to have, it's massive debt that must be paid back that probably will never be able to be paid back. But the biggest concern is the amount of inflation it's causing. Your purchasing power, your buying power at the store is going to be very affected by this massive debt creation with regards to these bailouts of industry, small business, the $1,200 stimulus checks. There's no such thing as a free lunch. We're going to pay for this with massive hyperinflation that's coming to America. It will not be avoided. We have Jamie Dimon coming out saying that says at a minimum, we assume over at JP Morgan, it will include a bad recession combined with some kind of financial stress similar to the 2008 crisis. I think he's being very conservative. I think what we have right now at our doorsteps here with this economy is going to be much worse than 2008, and it could be much worse than the Great Depression. Here's something that's very concerning, another bellwether here, and it's consumer credit. Consumer credit soared in February, not March. We haven't gotten those numbers yet. February, during the good times. This is before anything happened. This is before we had a frozen economy. Consumer credit soared in February. Revolving credit rose $4.2 billion to a record $1.096 trillion. Non-revolving credit, which is mostly auto and student loans, rose $1.8 billion to a new all-time high of $3.12 trillion. Wait till we see the numbers for March and April. They're going to be horrific. Again, we knew last year in 2019, over 7 million people were severely delinquent on their auto payments. People are having an extremely hard time with their student loan debt. Again, how bad does this get now that we have small businesses going out of business on a daily basis? We have millions of people on a weekly basis now unemployed. We have a frozen economy. Just think, again, you don't have to be Einstein to figure this out where it's all going. The housing market is going to collapse. The mortgage industry in big trouble. The auto industry, big trouble. It's all in big trouble, ladies and gentlemen. SHTFplan.com. Almost half of small business will close if they cannot reopen soon. Check that out. That's a good website, SHTFplan.com. Here's another one on SHTFplan.com. New survey. 60% of Americans cannot provide basic necessities if they are in lockdown for 1 month. Here's another article. U.S. airlines want a $50 billion bailout. They spent $45 billion buying back their own stock. We know that a ton of money is going to be earmarked for our nation's 4 biggest airlines, American, Delta, Southwest, and United. They would have needed a lot less bailout money if they hadn't spent almost $45 billion or sent that money to Wall Street in the past 5 years to keep their shareholders happy by buying their own stock. And so they spent $45 billion buying their own stock, and now they want $50 billion in bailouts. Incredible, incredible. So many of the small business owners will be left by the wayside, while the big boys, the big airlines who spent all that money propping up their stock, keeping their shareholders happy, they're going to get bailed out. A small business owner, if he's lucky, will get a loan, and he'll be on the hook with the biggest mafia in the world, the biggest cartel in the world, the United States government. DailyMail.com. Stark photos show miles-long rows of cars in Florida at a food bank as demand surges by 600%. More than 500,000 residents file for unemployment. That's on dailymail.com. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not making anything up. I'm just sharing reality with you. I'm sharing the truth with you. So for the trolls out there, who mainly disappeared because they thought this was all made up, make believe. It was, just to scare people. It was just for views. But it's dailymail.com. It's CNBC. It's shtfplan.com. It's CNBC. It's Fox Business. It's Drudge. It's Wall Street Journal. It's everywhere. There's no hiding what's going on. So to the trolls out there who said that you and I were wrong, where are they now? Zero Hedge today. Small business rescue loan platform crashes. Going to get much harder for people to get help, and it's really, really unfortunate. Another one here on Zero Hedge. Gold futures extend gains to 8-year highs after Pelosi's $1 trillion promise. Look, bet against the debt. Bet against the debt, bet against the phony dollar. The dollar at some point is going to come under extreme pressure. No doubt about that. And the more debt that they create, the more silver and the more gold you should be stockpiling. Again, I showed a purchase that I made a few weeks ago on one of my last videos. And I can't stress enough right now that it is so important to be holding real assets, to be putting some cash away. My big concern, though, with stacking cash is hyperinflation. And there is no doubt in my mind that we're going to see hyperinflation one day in America, but I still do believe it is important for the time being to have some cash put away. But I think diversification is huge. Silver, gold, cash. If you own some property, income producing property, great. But remember, if if you have 1 or 2 houses or a duplex or a triplex, that can be dangerous because we're going to see unemployment explode in America unlike we've ever seen before. And if you have a triplex and 2 of your tenants now lose their job, who's paying for those 2 properties? You are. So this is where it can be a little dangerous having an income producing property, because if you have two houses that you're renting out and one of your tenants lands up losing their job, they can't pay the rent. Now who makes that mortgage payment? Who makes up for that tenant? You do. So you have one property with a tenant in it, one without. So you can see how quickly you can get into trouble. So that's something I think that only you can answer, because a lot of people ask me about income producing property. If you own it outright, great. But if you don't, you're vulnerable here. You're very vulnerable, because if that tenant loses a job, you're going to have problems. So gold, silver, all preparations like food and water. If you own some land that you can grow food on or cattle on, great. If you have income producing property, great. If you own it outright. So I'm going to wrap it up right there today. I will leave you with this. Expect more volatility in these markets, and expect the Fed to be the buyer of last resort. It's the Fed in these markets now buying everything. And the question is, how much longer can the Fed buy everything while the U.S. economy is frozen, while the U.S. economy loses millions of jobs, while the U.S. economy loses, hundreds of thousands of small business? How long can the Fed continue buying mortgage-backed securities, treasuries, stocks, bonds? How long can this go on? It's not going to go on forever, ladies and gentlemen, and this is why you must be prepared for the end game here. This is all going to come tumbling down at some point when the Fed runs out of ammo. We're at 0% interest rates. It hasn't done a damn thing. Fed is buying everything now. You now have the U.S. government as the loan shark here with small business in America. This can only get worse before it gets better. And so there's no easy way out of this. There's going to be a lot of pain to come. I believe we're going to see the dollar collapse. We're going to see the rest of the U.S. economy collapse. And at this point, I don't even care what the stock market does, because it's so fake. It's almost comical watching what we watched yesterday, watching what we watched today. It's comical. We know the Fed is the buyer of last resort. The Fed is in these markets holding everything up, propping everything up. This is the worst economy I've seen in my lifetime. And we are heading to the greatest depression the world has ever seen. And yet we're supposed to believe that the stock market can go up 1,600 points like it did yesterday, like it can be up 800 or 900 points like it was today before it comes crashing down to close down 26 points. This is almost comical. I feel really sorry for so many Americans out there who did not prepare. I feel extremely sorry for the small business owner. This is the backbone of America. This is the blood in the veins of America, the small business owner. And it just seems like a corporate takeover where all this big business is just going to gobble up all the small guys now. Look, I wish I knew what was going to happen. I have no idea what's even going to happen tomorrow. But what I do see is things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And I pray to God that they get better. I pray to God we don't lose our country. This new America, I don't like the way it looks. I don't like my freedom being taken away. I don't like seeing small business decimated. I don't like seeing people being treated like slaves, getting handouts, $1,200 handouts to stay on the plantation. This is a really scary time and a scary place for America, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just, take it day by day. Keep preparing the best that we can. Keep walking close to God. Remember, thank God for everything you have right now, and pray to God for direction, and pray to God for this country. Have a good day. Talk to you very soon.